Excited about Airsoft? Hit the like button and comment to join other Airsofters in the conversation. What's up guys? We wanted to talk about some of the ways that you can customize AEGs. One of the coolest things about Airsoft is you can build a giant collection, but oftentimes if you're just buying things off the shelf and just putting a couple accessories on them, they're not all that unique and custom. So I wanted to bring one of my favorite new builds onto the channel and show you guys kind of the process that I went through to make it as unique as I have. At its base, I wanted to do something unique for a large magazine AR style rifle. So this is a 308, which is actually a SEMA SR25 QBS. Oftentimes those end up getting used as DMRs. And while that's a really useful way to use them and they're very effective, but they're semi-only. So that kind of limits the times that you can use them, although it does open you up to even higher FPS limits. But I wanted to do something that was compact, short, maneuverable, really just an M4 with a bigger magazine. Now you might argue that I could have just built an M4 and had an easier time storing magazines. And that's true. But I'd make the same argument about PCCs. They're just M4s with harder to store magazines. I've just gone the other direction. Let's start things off real quick with the externals. Of course, I mentioned that I started with a SEMA SR25 QBS. I loved the angularity of it, and it afforded me some really nice options for changing out my FPS really quickly thanks to the QBS system. The other advantage is that it uses a standard version 2 hop-up unit. Because I wanted to use a max model hop-up unit, I didn't have to go with some custom hop-up solution. It did mean, however, that because it used an extended version 2 gearbox, that upgrades for the internals were more limited than if I had gone with a standard version 2. Now, style-wise, I was looking to replicate one of my favorite looking real rifle designs, and that's the SLR B30, B30 meaning the 308 version. Now, there are SLR B15s in Airsoft thanks to Ditech and even some models that are in partnership with EMG, all of which have really cool SLR front ends. So I went to our parts catalog and disassembled my SR25 QBS front end forward and picked myself up a couple of shorter barrels. As you can see, I have two uppers here, some shorter barrels and two different hand guards. I really like that scalloped down lightweight look of the SLR rails. I think they work really well and they both have M-LOK compatibility, which makes accessory attachment a really easy and convenient thing. Obviously, if you have any experience with the Ditech SLR kits, or SLR in general, they don't have a gas tube and gas block. Instead, they have that key has a nub that fits into the hole where the gas tube would fit in the upper receiver. I didn't like that and I wanted a little bit more realism, so I took that over to the drill press and drilled a hole that matched perfectly with the receiver so that I could install a gas block and gas tube. Some of you might say that that's extreme in terms of attention to detail, but I love it and I think it looks really, really cool. Moving back from there, standard QBS receiver, haven't done anything to the SR25, and I kept the factory QBS compatible buffer tube and added a brace because even more hilarious than a shorter SBR style 308 platform in Airsoft is a 308 pistol, and why not? I'm sure you've noticed by now that it's not a stock factory black out of the box color. Again, because I was doing something so custom, I thought, let's take inspiration from the other SLR real rifles that I love where they do a variety of different color patterns kind of mixed and matched and do that on an airsoft gun. Spray paint works great. I used a brand called Montana. The reason I like them is they have a huge variety of colors, and because I wanted to be in the gray spectrum, there aren't a whole lot of options for other spray paint brands to do a variety of grays unless it's just primer gray, and that doesn't give me any variety of color. So Montana I used for both of these. I primed them and painted them, prepped them with a Scotch-Brite pad. It seems to be sticking pretty well. Time will tell. It's probably gonna get beat up, but that's what Airsoft is about, right? So I think that looks really cool. You'll also notice the red trigger. I'll talk about this kind of in the internal. I'll just talk about it now. So this is one of our EMG triggers. I like the more flat face. The one thing that I did to it that doesn't come kind of as part of it out of the box is the trigger had a lot of over travel. So I removed the trigger, spiked it, and then, or staked it, and then drilled my own set screw hole, and then tapped it for an M3 screw. And I took an RC set screw, which happened to be like 9 millimeters long, and that gave me a really nice over travel limit. Still a really snappy trigger, but you don't have a whole bunch of like over trigger movement. So I like how that turned out. Also, the magazines I'm using are the PTS SR25 mags. Now, those of you might know that SR25s come with two different kind of internals setups. We're going to talk about what's happening here. They come with two different internals setups. So some SR25s come with standard version 2 gearbox and an extended hop-up unit, and some come with an AEG 2.5 or extended version 2 gearbox and a standard version 2 or AEG M4 hop-up unit. The SEMA uses a standard AEG hop-up unit, which means that the feed mechanism, feed lip on the magazines is pushed forward as opposed to other brands that have it kind of mid-mounted. And there are several brands that offer this style. PTS happens to have magazines that are for this style. A lot of people say that these don't fit, and they're right. Out of the box, they don't fit very well. I found that to fit the SR25, I needed to Dremel down the spine and the two sides. Dremeling it as far as I did means that it goes in easier. It's still not super easy. They'll probably break in as I use it more, but the reality is I could just Dremel it more to make it fit easier, or Dremel down the spines inside the mag well. I didn't want to do that just in case I ever decided to use different magazines. I didn't want to permanently modify the receiver to fit these mags, but they feed great, and it's nice when somebody picks it up and goes to try to reload it and they can't get the mag out. They start talking about how, oh, it's not fitting, and I just tell them they're not strong enough. Now, the one huge drawback to SR25 magazines is they don't fit the Odin speed loader. So I'm doing a lot of this. I should probably figure out an adapter. Rounding things out, I just put some furniture on here. These are SLR. This is an SLR hand stop and one of their minimalist or like lower profile pick rail add-ons on the bottom. I did the same thing on my second upper. My second upper is exactly the same functionally, except it's a little bit longer in the rail and outer barrel. And I've thrown a fur franz on the front. Because of the volume the SR25 outputs in terms of air, it gives like a really nice popping sound, and the fur franz helps amplify that. And finally, I'm sure you're wondering if I've upgraded the internals, and I have. There's a full guide to the internals, or rather a parts list to the internals. If you go in our Evike Performance shop and look up SEMA SR25 QBSs, I basically copy pasted all of those upgrades for this platform. Our Evike Performance Shop upgrade builds are really, really solid, and they won't break the bank, and they give you a lot of really nice performance, and I wanted that performance here in my shorter 308. The major change away from what is in the listing for our Evike Performance Shop build is I went with one of the new rocket motors. I went with the green can rocket motor. I like the idea of the motor having an integrated fan, and I wanted to try that out. So that was really cool. I mean, the grip doesn't seem to heat up that much when I'm firing on semi all the time, so the fan must be doing something. And the other major change is rather than have the helical gear set inside, the rocket motor has a D-shaped shaft, and so you can't use existing helical pinion and bevel gears with them. Working on a solution. If it doesn't work out, I may either change the motor if I really wanted helical, but honestly, the sound isn't all that aggressive that I think that it's necessary. Other than that, it's got a Titan in it. It's got an upgraded set of gears. I went with an upgraded piston head, some of the sealing components, an upgraded nozzle, so my air seal's great out of the box, and of course, the Max model hop up. This is the EMG Blue edition. It feeds great. I love that when you drop the mag, you don't have a bunch of BBs dropping out. And this will loft the weight of BBs that I'm using really, really well, despite it having a very short barrel compared to normal SR25s. With that said, I'm not operating this like a normal SR25, so it is not semi-auto locked. I am not using this as a DMR. This is, for all intents and purposes, a regular rifleman class rifle, just like an M4. The only difference being, I've given myself a huge headache trying to find magazine pouches that fit and lug around less rounds than ideal, because I can only fit 3 of these on the front of my plate carrier and 1 on my belt, which means I'm at an ammo disadvantage if I need to play for an extended period of time. But beside that, I think it is a really cool way to do something non-standard, non-unique on an otherwise, you know, popular platform that is kind of always done the same way. And so I encourage you guys to think outside the box with your builds. Mix and match things, paint things a unique color, make them do things that, you know, are kind of against the grain. And ultimately, you will get something cool and unique looking that probably will get a lot of criticism and hate and people in the comments asking why the heck you did it. But at the end of the day, this makes me happy. I think it's hilarious. And to be honest, every single person that goes, it's a 308 SBR, clearly doesn't follow SLR Rifle Works and doesn't get the joke. I'd love to see some of your guys' custom builds. If you post them on Instagram, Facebook, tag us, send them to us. I'm excited to see what you guys can come up with, because this is where I get a lot of my fun in Airsoft. See you later. Want even more Airsoft content? Hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification icon. Follow us on Instagram and join our Facebook for epic weekly giveaways.